And this is the pilot. Here
Avatar
we go.
podcast, Yip Yip.
Here we go.
What?
Hey, Sam. You know how there's the rumor Walt Disney's head is like frozen or something, and he's actually still alive, and they're just waiting to bring him back at the right time?
I guess? Why do you bring that up?
Because that's exactly how Avatar: The Last Airbender starts. Well, not exactly, but close enough.
Well, this is a kids' show, so I'm not exactly sure that can happen.
Well, too bad. We're going to talk about it because I'm Tyler Strandberg.
And I'm Sam Albus.
And this is the Avatar Podcast.
Yip Yip.
On this podcast, we watch the Nickelodeon show Avatar: The Last Airbender episode by episode and discuss it in detail.
We talk about plot, themes, and character development throughout the show, as well as anything else we may notice that's also relevant to what's going on in the Avatar world or what's going on in our world.
At the end of each episode, we'll talk about who our favorite character was, as well as give the episode a rating on a scale of 1 to 10.
You're listening to the Avatar Podcast.
Yip, yip. Okay, Sam, so today we are watching the first episode. We watched it. We have already watched the first episode, the pilot episode of season 1, which is titled Book 1, Water. And it's called The Boy in the Iceberg. Do you want to?
Yes, it is. All of those things.
It is?
It is all of those things.
Do you want to summarize it? You want to read a summary?
Yeah, let's just, I'm just going to read this off of the script right now.
We scripted this.
Yes, we scripted this.
The banter and everything.
Yeah.
The banter.
We're reading off of a script.
We are reading off a script right now.
Yes.
Simultaneously. We're just very good at it.
Yes, we are. We're reading, verbatim, word for word.
Okay, speaking of reading, you should read the summary.
Yeah, I'm going to do it right now if you stop talking. The overview of this episode from avatar.fandom.com reads, while fishing, siblings Katara and Sokka discover Aang, a young boy frozen in an iceberg. After freeing him and his flying bison named Appa, they learn his identity as an airbender, long thought extinct, and bring him back to their village in the Southern Water Tribe. After witnessing the beam of light that shot through the sky after the two broke through the ice, Zuko, exiled prince of the Fire Nation tasked with finding the long-lost Avatar to restore his honor, becomes intent on capturing him. While playing, Aang and Katara mistakenly trigger a booby trap in an ancient Fire Nation ship, revealing Aang's whereabouts to nearby Zuko.
Other things you need to know about the episode premiered in Nickelodeon on February 21st, 2005, and it was written by Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, who also created the show. Fun facts for you, in case you didn't know that they were the creators. This thing premiered 15 years ago.
Oh my god.
Yeah, by the time this episode comes out, it'll be almost 15 years ago.
I was just a wee lad. I was just a wee lad when this premiered.
That was the point. It's a kid's show. Just because it's a kid's show, though, doesn't mean that it doesn't have some serious themes, which is what we're going to talk about now.
Yes, we are going to dive straight into the themes here. And the first theme we want to talk about that is like pretty obviously prevalent throughout this entire episode is war. I mean, we see that directly in the intro. It is established like right away that there is a war between the Fire Nation and pretty much everyone else.
Yeah, their world is just thrown into just like chaos. There's fighting nonstop. Like it's we learned that the Fire Nation is kind of seen as like evil.
Yeah, that's kind of the like main takeaway from it. I mean, in terms of the theme of war, and it's kind of the Fire Nation are introduced as just the evil villains, kind of, just introduced as the antagonists. Like if you look at Star Wars, like the Empire are the bad guys or whatever.
This
and there
isn't
isn't
a Star Wars podcast.
Yeah,
it's an
but
Avatar
I'm
podcast.
drawing a parallel to another popular piece of media. Star
Wars is sci-fi, Avatar is fantasy.
Yeah, okay, there's still fiction. Okay. so it works. I mean, if you want, I can just draw the comparison to, Nazis, but
oof, yikes.
Maybe not go there.
Ooh, yikes. I think you did. You already brought it up.
But we learned that at least to the Water Tribe, or if you want to get even more specific to Katara and Sokka, the Fire Nation are just pure evil.
Yeah, which we see that later too. Like when Aang starts to introduce himself in Appa, Sokka, that's a character. Sokka is skeptical when he's meeting Aang and Appa, and he's very justified in doing that because he's unsure of what they bring or the secrets they may hold. Little do they know the secret that Aang holds. But yeah, he is very skeptical of them. He is like trying to, I don't know.
I want to say something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick up the slack.
Yeah.
Here. I think Sokka's completely and utterly justified in thinking the way he does because, I mean, they are in the middle of a war that has taken almost everything from them, and I think because of the responsibility that was left to Sokka, Katara says in the intro that their father left them to take care of their village or whatever. So Sokka feels that responsibility to be that, kind of masculine figure in the village. So I think he's entirely justified because of this wartime to be paranoid of Aang, because also, like, they've never seen an airbender before. They don't know what an airbender looks like.
Yeah, they're just completely skeptical of what is going on. And they have every reason to be skeptical of the Fire Nation, too. Katara says this line.
Probably trying to signal the Fire Navy.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he's a spy for the Fire Navy. You can tell by that evil look in his eye.
And I think that really speaks to how they see the Fire Nation. They see the Fire Nation as this like one-dimensional kind of group of people, and they're just evil. They don't see him as anything apart from that because that's the only interaction they've had with them.
It's just black and white. There's good and evil, and there's no good in the Fire Nation. They're just they're just evil people that go around and kill everybody, invade everywhere, and take what they want.
I mean, because that's all they've really seen from the Fire Nation so far.
That's all they've ever experienced. So
I also
makes
think
sense.
It's really interesting too how much the war has shaped their world. We see that later when Aang goes to meet the village, and he talks about he shows the villagers airbending, and they don't really even, there's a lot of like a surrounding bending. They call it like magic constantly. Like Sokka calls it Katara's waterbending magic water. And when Aang does airbending in front of the village, one of the kids says like, magic trick, do it again. And so like it really just shows how much culture the war has taken away from this group of people. They're such a small tribe in the south. Like Katara's the only waterbender. They barely know what bending is.
Like you said, the nations are broken up by what element they can bend, Fire Nation, Earth Nation, etc. So like it's very sad that they're calling their own waterbending magic, and I can't help but think that is because of this war.
I think it's really cool too because Katara as a waterbender wants to learn more about her culture. And she asks Aang if he can teach her waterbending. But, like, she doesn't even know that he can't teach her waterbending because he's an airbender, Like, she doesn't know the difference between airbending or waterbending or any of that. And that's just like, oh, God, that's so sad. I can't even wrap my head around that. That's so sad.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Furthermore, on the theme of war, this is the last point I want to bring up on this topic. Aang's playing with the kids, and Sokka runs over to him, and he says,
Stop it! Stop it right now! What's wrong with you? We don't have time for fun and games with the war going on.
What
and like,
war?
God, if that doesn't speak to like Sokka's character just in whole, like being so afraid of like an attack that might be coming or something that they could experience that they don't even know what time it could happen. It's just, oh my God.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't even feel like he can take a break or relax or whatever because the Fire Nation are always looming over them, So it's like, yeah, it's incredibly sad that they just can't, be kids.
Yeah, that's a good jumping off point to our next theme we want to talk about.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that right now when we dive into the next theme.
Oh my God, wait, what?
Yeah.
And we have another theme? There's more than just one in this episode?
Yeah, there are more. We did our research, right?
No way.
Yeah, so the next theme we want to talk about that is very prevalent in this episode is innocence. And let's go back around to the intro
Back to the
again.
intro. Back up to
which
the top.
is a very, I will comment right now, is a very succint and very informational
Yeah, they
intro.
kind of just like throw a lot at you.
But I don't think it's too much to digest.
No,
It's pretty it's pretty easy to understand, but that maybe
It's
just
not
because
really,
I've
like
watched it
yeah,
multiple
I wouldn't
times.
say it's really, like, overwhelming, but it is a lot to process. Like, especially as a kid, it was a lot for me to process. I also jumped into the show, like, in the middle of it, so I didn't start from the first episode
I
as a
think most
kid.
people did, like, because book 2 is the book I remember the most because
Yeah,
that was
that was
like what
always
they
on reruns on
always
Nickelodeon.
absolutely. Okay, so let's actually talk about this now.
Let's, like,
Uh,
stay on topic a little bit.
So yeah, on our theme of innocence, in the intro, Katara says that their father leaves for the war, and Katara and Sokka are left to tend to the tribe.
Sokka and Katara are meant to look after the tribe, and it's like so much of their innocence has just been like taken away from them because they're still kids and they have so much responsibility
That's a
placed onto
big
them.
responsibility
It's
to put
huge.
on, a teenager, and I mean they're both teenagers,
Yeah.
right? But like pretty like they're very young people.
Yes.
Let's just say that. That's a
Yes.
pretty big. But that's also like a parent thing to do. Is just like when dad leaves, just like look after the house for me, son.
Yeah. Another interesting point is that there's still adults there. There's still adults like in the South Pole, but they mostly have kids. And also, Sokka and Katara's father was the chief of the tribe. So, in a way, like it is kind of passed on down to them, even though they are teenagers, they are still kind of like in charge.
That's a lot of pressure
It
to put
is.
on your kid.
It is. And like Sokka is the oldest guy there. Like, in
That's
all
true.
honesty, he did kind of become the, I'm doing air quotes right now, like man of the tribe.
Yeah, that's very true. And as far as he knows, and he hasn't had like a parental figure to guide him in this, but he is, the elder, the man, the warrior of the tribe, and he tries his darndest to, fulfill that, as much as he knows, because he
Yeah.
doesn't know a whole lot about being a leader.
Yeah. And
You
he's
know.
15 at this point. And I believe they said in the intro that they left about 2 years ago at this point. So they left him, like, they left when Sokka was just 13. Like, that's still very, very young. Aang is 12.
Yeah.
Like, Sokka is basically Aang's age when he had the whole village to look after. Which, I mean, like, Aang has to save the world and all, but, like, that's another topic, whatever. He's the Avatar, so.
I want to move on to the next example of innocence in this episode, and that is when Katara breaks the iceberg.
Oh my god, yes. I love this scene.
Oh yeah, when
She's,
they are
like,
on the boat,
freaking out and
Yes.
she's waterbending behind her.
Yes, exactly. And in this scene, Katara casually drops that their mother died
Yeah, which we
sometime
mentioned
in the past.
earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mentioned that. So she casually drops that. It wasn't like shoved in your face, just like our mom is dead. It's just
Yeah.
like casually
it wasn't
thrown.
one of those like stupidly dumb dramatic moments where Aang is like, "Where are your parents?" And then Katara is like, "Well, our father left for the war." And then Aang goes, "What about your mom? Don't you have one?" And she goes, "No. Our mother was killed by the Fire Nation." I mean, like, yes, that does happen a little bit later in the series, but, like, we'll get to that. But, like, that would be a terrible way to first do it, and they don't do that. So, thank you, Brian Konietzko and Michael DiMartino.
Yeah, this scene really like shows that Katara and Sokka are, taking leadership in the village in very different ways and have very different perceptions of how it should be done.
Yeah.
I think Katara has a lot of like valid things to say,
Yeah.
about Sokka not being appreciative
Right.
because, she doesn't explain, she kind of shouts at him that she's taken on all the quote unquote motherly duties, something that traditionally the
I think,
female
like,
in the household.
caretaker is a better word.
Yeah.
Like, still very laborious work, but
We're assuming
gender stereotypes.
yeah, heteronormative gender
stereotypes
here. So just bear with me on that. Yeah, so we're seeing Katara take on more of a caretaker figure, and then Sokka is more of the like defender of the village, or like the warrior, or the like male elder of the village, whatever label you want to put on it.
Yeah.
So they are both taking like different roles in the village and things like that.
Yeah, which I like this part of it too, because you can still see how like they're still so, I don't want to say like immature. That's probably the wrong word.
No,
like,
that is the right word.
no, but like still very young.
Naive.
Yes, because Katara is thinking in the sense like, I've done this, 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 and this, and you haven't even noticed. Where on the flip side, like Sokka has done a lot for them too. Sokka has filled in a huge, huge like hole that his father left, and Katara hasn't really noticed that either. She says to him like, "You've just been off playing soldier," you know. So like, I think it's really interesting how they've both done probably an equal amount of work for each other, but neither one of them really notices. Honestly, because they're both probably taking advantage of it. There's this next part which made me very sad again because it's like kind of
Wow,
a
we
sad
should have.
moment.
Yeah, we should have picked sadness as a theme for
Shed
this
a little tear
episode.
for you. I have a Twitter thread about how many times I've cried on Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, follow Tyler on Twitter.
Follow me on Twitter. You'll get my info at the end of the episode. But yeah, Aang and Katara go penguin sledding. And there's this very brief moment between them. Let's take a listen.
I haven't done this since I was a kid.
You still are a kid.
That one, oof, that's intense.
It's
like,
delivered so like lightheartedly, so it doesn't like hit you until you think about it. And then when you think
when
about
you
it,
think about it, you're like,
oof.
oh my
you
God,
like do the
that's sad.
thing. You like do the thing where you like look at the ground. You're like, oh, wow, she
start-
really just said that.
That's
like they really said that.
Oof, yeah, that's hard. That hits me hard.
Yeah, that is like one of my favorite lines probably in the entire show, just because of what good writing it is,
Yeah.
like, and what it conveys. You know, it really conveys that Katara doesn't see herself as a kid or somebody capable of having a childhood.
Yeah.
So, and she feels as if she's grown up because she's taken on these roles and responsibilities of somebody that is much older than she actually is.
Yeah. I think it also does a really good job of showing how Aang throughout this entire episode is like kind of the representation of innocence, like this theme that we have, right? I mean, he sticks his tongue to his staff, like when he's meeting the kids.
Makes a joke about his pee freezing in the igloo.
And then he like makes them a slide for Appa. And at the end of the episode, it gets even more heartbreaking when we realize that he was in the iceberg for 100 years. And there's this war that's been going on. It's like all of this innocence that he's had is just like taken away from him.
Yeah, and it's not revealed in this episode to Sokka and Katara that Aang is the Avatar.
Oh my God. Stop.
But what?
Stop.
What?
Do we know he's the Avatar yet?
Yeah, we kind of get the
Okay, we can
context
assume.
clues.
We can assume.
We can assume that the audience knows
The
he's the
audience
Avatar.
can assume, but we don't know yet.
Okay, I guess we don't know for sure, but like when Katara is like putting two and two together, is like, you were in that iceberg for 100 years, and then he's
Aang's all
like literally
100 years.
Yeah, and he holds a hand up
has,
to his
like,
head, and he's like, "Oh, oh my God!"
What's half of a quarter? Like an eighth? How would you say eighth? He has like an eighth life crisis. Because you have your midlife
I would
crisis
call
and your
that, like-
quarter life crisis, but he's like not halfway between.
I would call
birth
that like
and
a
quarter life.
sixth life crisis.
No, like half of 25 is 12 and a half, and Aang's 12, so he's like eighth.
Okay, whatever. But like, what is the average life expectancy in this?
Okay, we're
world?
moving on.
Okay.
Aang is having a life crisis. At what point in his life, we're not sure. And that is the end of the episode where we just ended right there. Nothing else happens. Everything we talked about, everything that happened in the episode. We did not miss a
What are
single
you doing
part of
right now?
it.
What do you do? Like you're just speaking words.
And-
Whatever. It's pretty interesting that a lot of the themes in this episode were really centered around the characters.
Oh my God, you're so right. And we're going to talk more about that.
But first, a quick break. All right, we're back.
We're back.
Before we left, we had just talked about the main themes of the episode, war and innocence, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that in these characters. Don't you think, Tyler?
Oh, yeah, I do. I mean, obviously, the plot is one way to show a theme in an episode, but you also show them through the characters. So, of course, it's going to pop up.
However, this is the pilot episode, so the most important things about these characters is how they're introduced and what we learn about them.
Yeah, so a pilot is actually like the main point of a pilot is to get across the point of a show, what the show is about basically, and an introduction of the characters to get you attached to them and get you to want to see more of them. And I think the show does that really perfectly with most of the characters. Like all of the characters that have been introduced in this episode, I think it does a really great job of doing that. I especially think it does a really great job of doing that for Sokka. Sokka's very first line actually says,
It's not getting away from me this time. Watch and learn, Katara. This is how you catch a fish.
and I love this line. I love this line. It's one of the best lines in the whole not show, episode, in the whole episode. It does a really great job of setting up who his character is. He says, it's not getting away from me this time, which shows that he's done it before. He's persistent. He's going after the fish. Like, he's tried over and over and over again, and he's probably failed before, but he's going to keep trying. And then he says, watch and learn, Katara, which shows that he is kind of like sexist. We see that throughout most of season 1 and a little bit throughout the show too. And then he says, this is how you catch a fish. Like, oh my God, I love this. It shows he's persistent. It shows that, like, he's a little bit sexist. God, I think I had 3 points, but I'm only thinking of 2 right now. Whatever, who cares?
And yeah, just
great line.
Just keep in mind we learn all of these things from that one line. And, like, the things he says throughout the episode just continue to support that. But if you're, like, really paying attention, yeah, like, just from that line, you learn all of those things about his character.
He doesn't give up. That was the third thing I was thinking of. He's persistent, he's a little bit sexist, and he doesn't really give up. Later, he also shows a lot of leadership and responsibility. He teaches the kids how to be soldiers, even though they're just toddlers too. He's constantly trying to take care of Katara and make sure that she's safe.
Takes on the responsibility as the
defender,
the
defender
leader,
the protector.
The defender of the village. So it does show that he is a pretty responsible person, and he takes that very seriously.
Yeah. God, he just has such great lines in this episode, too.
What is that thing?
This is Appa, my flying bison.
Right. And this is Katara, my flying sister.
What are you talking about?
You're kidding, right?
Penguin!
He's kidding, right?
Come on, Appa. Yip Yip.
Wow, that was truly amazing.
Appa's just tired.
That shit's just funny. I'm sorry. I am a huge fan of dry, sarcastic humor, especially as an adult. I may or may not believe that Sokka shaped my humor. So watching it again now, it really hits. It hits me good.
Yeah, A+ delivery too on those lines. Because if those lines weren't delivered well, I mean, they're not going to land.
And these are kids, too, in the voice roles. These are actual kids voicing them. I don't think Dante Basco is. I think he was a little bit older than Zuko was. Yeah, along with being sarcastic, Sokka is also established as the comedic relief. He gets wet right away. That's pretty funny. So Katara drops...
You really sold how funny that one was.
Well, I'm sorry. Do you want me to
He gets wet. That's really funny.
He gets wet. It's so funny. No, Katara's waterbending above him, and he, raises his spear that he's trying to catch the fish with, and he pokes the bubble of water, and it splatters all over him.
That's funny.
It is funny.
It's funny.
That's what I was saying.
You gotta sell it,
it
bro.
wasn't being funny.
You gotta sell it, bro.
Okay, well, it was funny. Later,
I really like when Katara makes fun of him for it's just well, I'm not the one that makes poses in the water.
Muscles.
And then
he's making muscles.
Yeah,
in the water.
and then he actually does the pose and does it in the water. He's
he has his sleeve rolled up to look at his muscles. It's so dumb. There's also the point where Aang runs into the watchtower when he's flying around, and it kind of just collapses, and Sokka is in disbelief because he worked so hard to build that watchtower. And it's a little bit sad that we're laughing at Sokka's hard work getting destroyed. That's laughing at when an adult kicks over a kid's sandcastle.
Yeah.
But it's still a little bit funny.
I just like the exasperated my watchtower.
That was a good impersonation of that.
Thanks. I'm actually Sokka.
Let's move on. So Sokka's really funny. Yeah, Sokka's a funny character. And his sister Katara is not seen as a funny character, at least right now. She is seen as someone who's responsible, motherly. I like that she's very quick to call out Sokka's sexism. I loved that. Like, you go. Like, hell yeah, girl.
Yeah, immediately it's like they're established as contrasting characters, you know?
She is more serious than Sokka is, though. I wouldn't say that they're foils of each other. They're definitely not foils of each other, but they are different ends of a similar spectrum. This is where I think like they're still similar. You can tell like they're siblings. Katara's also shown to be very persistent in that like she's continually trying to work on her water bending. That was just that's so cool to me. Like,
Yeah, I mean, she's got like a pretty like decent base for having just like taught herself how to do it, you know. At least she can like move water and kind of get it to where she wants to go, but I think that's still nevertheless like pretty impressive because she's only taught herself.
Yeah.
No teachers whatsoever.
yeah, she's still kind of letting the water guide her instead of like she's guiding the water, but she's still getting a hang of it. We talked a little bit about how Sokka was very skeptical and how he's kind of a I wouldn't say pessimistic, but a skeptical person.
I think he would refer to himself as a realist.
Jesus. But Katara is very optimistic. We see that when she runs right towards the iceberg as soon as Aang comes out of the water. She is very hopeful that he can teach her bending. She literally says in the intro that she hasn't lost hope, and she still believes in the Avatar. She asks Aang if he knew the Avatar. She's still very full of hope. She's still a very hopeful person.
Katara is a very pleasant character, and I think a character that people like immediately connect to.
Yeah.
You know, like she was definitely the character I connected to when I was younger.
I
'cause,
loved Katara.
Yeah, that's just the kind of characters I go for. Like, obviously, I liked Aang too, but I'm pretty sure I didn't like Sokka when I was younger. Like, at least in this episode, like, oh my god, you're kind of a dick.
I mean, like, I think you're supposed to kind of be laughing at him and making fun of him a little bit. We touched on Aang briefly, but let's go back to him. We said that he was the embodiment of innocence in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just going to touch on those points again. We already talked about this, but we said, like, a few examples of that are him sticking his tongue to his staff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Peeing and making a joke. Penguin sledding. The first thing he says when he pops out of the iceberg is, "You don't go penguin sledding for me." Thank you. That was
a perfect
great
delivery.
impersonation of Aang.
Yeah,
I did a
exactly.
very good job of doing that.
Yes, you did. Yeah, the thing he wants to do, like, I mean, obviously he's unaware he's been asleep for 100 years, but even so, I think you have to be a little bit aware that you just woke up from being in an iceberg, and
But
the first thing that he wants to do is go penguin sledding.
Yeah, he still wants to just goof off and have a good time. Apart from that, really, though, this episode, we don't learn that much about Aang.
Not
Like, we're kind of just like, oh, fun kid.
Yeah,
Cool.
not really. He's just kind of surface level, like introduced. You
But
know.
I think that works well because, like, we're just supposed to like him right now, right? Like, this is a pilot episode. We're supposed to get attached to him as a character. He clicks well with Katara. It's been established that we want to see Katara succeed, and we think that he will help her in that way. So we like him, and I think that's good enough. Then we see Zuko and Iroh, and I love this. We learn that Zuko is a very hot-headed person. He's a hot-head boy.
Yes,
just
he's a very
full
hot-headed
of
boy.
Hot,
Very angry boy.
fiery.
He's a very angry boy.
hotness.
Yeah, he like blows up. He just blows up at his uncle and
I'm
like
like-
shouts things.
I'm like, take a shot every time he talks about capturing the Avatar. You would be drunk by the end of this
yes,
episode.
you would be very intoxicated.
He is very desperate in his search to find the Avatar.
Yep, very, because his honor depends on it.
Honor.
My honor.
But we don't learn about that until like a little bit later, I think. But that's fine. That's all we really learn of Zuko right now. He's hot-headed. He's the villain. He wants to find the Avatar. We also learn a little bit about Iroh. He's a paternal figure to Zuko. He is pretty laid back. We see him playing Pie Show, and no, he's not playing Pie Show right now. He's playing like a card game.
It's like mahjong or something like that. Yeah, I mean, it's also established that he's a pretty powerful firebender, at least somebody that, has enough knowledge where he is kind of like, he is a master to Zuko, showing him the, firebending forms on the ship. And then, Zuko, with his fiery nature, again, says just like, you will teach me the next set.
Yeah, and Iroh's just like, I think it's interesting how Iroh talks about firebending as an art form. He talks about the way you should do it too, and that like it doesn't come from the muscle, it comes from the breath. So that way, like we learn it's not just bending isn't just about raw power. It's like anyone can do it as long as they have the right technique.
But yeah, that's really like all we see from like the characters. That's really it.
Yeah.
But like overall, I think the character introductions were pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's okay too, because I think any of the character introductions that we missed this week will be like made up a bit next week, particularly Zuko and Aang.
But that's technically the next episode, but we'll talk about them later. What did you think of this episode?
Well, Sam, I would love to tell you what I thought about this episode, but first we have to take a quick break. And we're back. We just got done talking about characters. We're just about to wrap up this episode, but first, Sam, I want to know what you thought of it.
Well, my favorite character of this episode was and is Katara.
Ooh, good choice.
Yes, Katara is such an immediately likable character from the start. Calling Sokka out on his sexism, just being a very like empathetic and nice person to Aang, and like I don't know, she's just instantly likable and relatable, and yeah, that's why she's my favorite character.
She really embraces that Lizzo vibe. You could have had a bad bitch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that's definitely the first thing I thought of when I think of Katara is Lizzo.
I thought of when I saw Katara.
It's true, but yeah, Katara is just great. Obviously, she's my favorite. Well, Tyler, I talked about my favorite character. Who was your favorite character in this episode?
It took you long enough to ask me. My favorite character was Sokka, which is a little bit of a surprise to me. I didn't think I would like Sokka as much as I did in this episode, but he just had a very strong start. I thought like we learned the most about his character.
He also has a lot of funny jokes.
He does.
I laugh at all of his jokes.
I love his dry sarcasm.
I think that's a testament to like how good the writing is in the episode, because we've watched this first episode a lot.
We watched it a lot of times.
And I still laugh at all the jokes.
I still enjoy it. It's still a good episode.
Yeah. But hey. We haven't reached the verdicts for the episodes
we're
yet.
getting into a little bit of some verdict talk right now.
Yeah, some verdict territory, and I'm going to switch it up. What is your verdict for this episode?
I just gave my verdict on my favorite character.
They don't know how we do it.
So, on this show, we like to do a very traditional ranking system, 1 through 10. And we don't do the American grading system where 50% is a fail. We do a standard where 50% is a middle of the road. A 50% would be like a C. It's not good, but like it's not bad. It's just there. 1 is pretty terrible. 1 is sufferable. 1 is like, I hated every minute of this. And 10 is a perfect episode. It might not be perfect in every single way, but there is something about it that makes it a perfect episode. So, Sam, what is your verdict on The Boy in the Iceberg?
Well, my verdict for this episode is I am going to give it a 10 out of 10.
Ooh.
I think it's the fact that we've watched it so many times, probably like 3 or 4 times by now. And I still laugh at all of the jokes. I still after poring over how the episode is written and, the intro at the beginning and how that's presented and like all the things throughout this episode, and I still think it's fantastic. Like it is the perfect pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the like very important characters in this episode are introduced beautifully. The writing is fantastic. The humor is fantastic. It's
Yeah.
perfect episode.
Yeah.
So I talked about my verdict for this episode. I want to know your verdict for this episode, Tyler.
Sam, I would have to agree with you and give this episode a 10.
Ooh, we would agree.
We do. It's a perfect pilot. Like I said earlier, the point of a pilot is to introduce all the characters and introduce what the show is about, and it does that, and it does more than that. It goes above and beyond, and I think that it's not just a good setup for a kids' TV show. I think it's a perfect setup for the reason why I'm making this podcast, the best TV show of all time.
Wow, that is quite the statement to
It really
make.
is. I do firmly believe Avatar is the best TV show of all time, and that is why I'm making this podcast.
Yep, and we are here to change your mind
We're here
on that too.
to prove it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so says the Avatar expert.
And that's all we have for this episode. A huge thank you goes out to our producer and audio engineer, Aaron Bogen, along with his production company, Sonovent Production, and Annie Galloway, who made our cover art and is our graphic designer.
Make sure you join us next week. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please give us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts. It's super helpful to us. Don't forget to tell a friend about the show or share the show if you like it.
If you want to get more involved with our Avatar content, please feel free to reach out to us. Send us questions about the show, fan theories you have, what you thought of this episode, something we mentioned that you liked, or something we didn't mention that you wish we would have. Our email is airbenderpod@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at airbenderpod. Both of those are AIRBENDERPOD. You can also follow us on Instagram with the same handle.
If you want to keep in touch and stay updated in the Avatar fandom, make sure to join our Facebook community page at the Avatar Podcast Yip Yip community, where you can discuss the show with other fans and ourselves. You can find the link to that in the description of this episode.
I'm Tyler Stramberg, the host, creator, and co-writer of the show. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram, both at TylerJohn7. That's TYLERJON and the number 7.
I'm Sam Albus, the co-host and co-writer of this show. You can follow me on Twitter at Sam_Albus or on Instagram at Sam Albus. That is ALBUS.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Yip, yip.